On today's show, we had an instant classic between the Magic and the Rockets. We had a record-setting night for one player in Golden State's win. And are the Chicago Bulls frauds? We're going to talk about all that and so much more on this edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and I'm from Locked On Cavs. He's Swipa from Locked On Nuggets, and we want to say thank you before we get started for not only making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day, but also helping to make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in all of America. We could not have done it without you, but you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. That means Apple, that means Spotify, that means anywhere else. Please make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube as well. Hit that thumbs up button for us and click the notification bell as well. That is the very best way you can help grow the Locked On NBA channel. In today's show, of course, is also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. We had a loaded slate of games on Sunday. It's one of the best sports moments of the year, sports weekends of the year, when we've got so much basketball, so much NFL. It's just the best right now.
Yeah, I love it. I'm sure that a lot of people that have families with children and responsibilities and all that, they might not love it as much as it's like, Mom, Dad, I'm hungry. Dinner needs to be made. Order a pizza. We got NFL from 9:30 a.m. and then all of a sudden I get to see Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. I get to see Orlando Magic versus the Houston Rockets. Oh, by the way, the Philadelphia Eagles are playing versus the Detroit Lions. Hey, what did Magic just say? I ain't going to be here.
That's unless you were in front of the TV, that was the appropriate answer. And I want to start with the game you mentioned between the Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets, because Houston wins this one in overtime. There was a wild sequence to end regulation, but a truly great game. Before we dive into it, let's hear from Locked On Magic's Philip Rossman-Reich for more.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic fall in overtime to the Houston Rockets, 117-113, a game that the Magic had control of for most of the game. Fell apart a little bit in the fourth quarter, maybe ran out of gas, being undermanned without Jalen Suggs and without Paolo Banchero. But obviously, missed free throws were a huge issue once again for Orlando. And you can talk about all these little missed opportunities throughout the game. And of course, Anthony Black up by 2 after stealing the ball from Kevin Durant in a tie game, running to the other end, and Darryl Armstronging a go-ahead dunk. Missed a free throw that would have put the Magic up 3. That led to Alperen Şengün hitting the game-tying basket to send the game to overtime. And in overtime, Magic just couldn't get consistent offense. And look, the difference between an undermanned Orlando Magic team and the Houston Rockets, the best offense in the league with Kevin Durant, with Alperen Şengün, and everything else, is just that. They have the ability, they have the offensive will to get to the end. Orlando is still trying to figure out their offense. And look, and they're missing key players, undoubtedly missing key players. So give the Magic the credit for playing great defense throughout the game. They really held Houston, forced them into boxes, forced them to not move the ball, a lot of isolation play. That is what Orlando wanted. They were disruptive. Their defense has slowly gotten back to the level that everyone's accustomed to with the Magic. But it's still these offensive moments and these offensive mistakes that hold them back. Orlando led by 11 in the fourth quarter, took some bad shots, made some bad decisions, couldn't get the ball to go in the basket. Kevin Durant's going to do that, and that is your ball game. The Houston Rockets defeat the Orlando Magic 117-113. Orlando back in action Tuesday against Golden State.
So, Swipa, I want to ask you this. Is this a worse loss for the Magic or a better win for the Rockets, considering the circumstances here?
I mean, they're playing the Rockets. The Rockets have been really good this year. I think this is a good win for them. I mean, you definitely wanted to see the Magic pull that game out, obviously, and I think for them, especially given Anthony Black off the bench, I think played some really great minutes for them. He was my prediction for the breakout player of the year, given especially what his team needs around him. And, to get 18 points and get some efficient play out of him, made some good defensive plays this game as well. The Magic should have been able to pull this out, obviously even without Paolo. But, man, I just got to give a shout out to the Houston Rockets, man. This game, I'm looking at Cleaning Glass right now, they had a 35% offensive rebound percentage in the half court today. I don't think people realize, but one of the reasons why, if you look at the Houston Rockets offense, And you look at why they're so good and why they're currently number one. This season, they have a 123.4 offensive rating. But the reason why they have that is they have a 41% offensive rebound percentage. They are historically great. They were last year, but they're even better this year. And when you're able to just literally like re-put up possessions on almost half your possessions, you're able to get 2 shots, at least at the rim, it makes you that much better. And then you couple that, I think when Şengün taking like a real lead, now today, he shot horrible. I mean, 11 to 31 is like, that's Kobe, you know what I mean, empty the clip, type numbers. But Kevin Durant played well, 13 to 24, 35 points for them. They just have a really good team, man. I'm excited. And the fact that they're doing this without Fred VanVleet and are able to like get away with these clutch victories, in part because Şengün and his playmaking, but also just working off of Kevin Durant and Amin Thompson. They just look really good, man. And I'm really happy also for Reed Shepherd. He got 16 points off the bench and 7 rebounds. I'm just glad that he's continuing to figure himself out in this league too, because last year, obviously, one of the biggest concerns was, will they be able to take a step forward with him at their point guard, given how young he is? And he's done a great job of that so far this year.
Yes, he has. And you brought up the offensive rebounding, and that to me is the biggest thing that stands out here, because you look at some of the advanced metrics, like, yes, they have the number 1 offensive rating in the NBA. It would be the number 1 offensive rating in NBA history if this were their full number. Like, it's an outrageous mark that they have there. But they are currently 8th in effective field goal percentage. They're currently 8th in true shooting percentage. But their offensive rebounding rate for the full season is 40.8. That means they're collecting nearly half of their own misses on the offensive glass. That is first in the NBA by a wide margin. I think number 2 is Portland, and the gap between number 1 and number 2 is the same between Portland at number 1 and the Los Angeles Lakers at number 17. Like, that's how much better they are at offensive rebounding than anyone else in basketball. And that it's not the only reason they're great. Like, we can talk about what Şengün does offensively, not just in terms of being able to score the ball, playmaking as well. We can talk about just Kevin Durant being Kevin Durant and how good he is. But that's the secret to their success. It's the one thing that they do better than everybody else in the NBA. And the gap is so wide that it makes such a big impact.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious to see how they look the rest of the year. This is going to be a fun team to watch because they're so unique in the way they play basketball, and I love it. I love watching the Houston Rockets play.
They are a fun watch, and they're a team that we're going to have to be watching in a lot of big games, I think, down the stretch of this season. Let's head out to game number 2, because the New Orleans Pelicans, in their first game without head coach Willie Green after he was dismissed earlier this weekend, they fell to the Golden State Warriors. Let's hear from Jake Madison for more.
New coach, but a similar result for the Pelicans as they fall 124-106 to the Golden State Warriors. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. Yeah, the result might be different, but this game felt different as James Borrego is now the interim head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans after they fired head coach Willie Green earlier this weekend. This was his first game in charge, and clearly this team has a lot of work that needs to be done to it, but you saw a different energy from this Pelican squad out there on the court. One game after that Friday loss to the Lakers where I saw the worst body language I have ever seen from an NBA team. This team played with some energy, played with more pace, just a little bit more pep to it than we had seen before. That's at least a step in the right direction, and this Pelican squad feels maybe they can turn this around. Zion Williamson's about to become healthy, be back on the floor for the team, that they could make a run to the play-in tournament, maybe at best here. That might be a bit of a dream scenario, but there's some belief in the building, and it does feel like a different day here in New Orleans. I've got more over at the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
I do think, to what Jake was saying, a run to the play-in tournament, probably a little extreme for where the Pelicans are at right now. I mean, this loss pushes them to 2-11 on the season. But I do think that having a new voice, not having Willie Green there, could be beneficial for them. And this is just such a weird situation considering they made a trade that still nobody in the NBA understands, because they gave up their first round pick for Derek Queen, who was in the starting lineup and only played 9 minutes on Sunday night.
Yeah. Derek is good, and I think he'll continue to figure out who he is. 24 minutes played today, 9 points. I like the way he plays. Like, he's like kind of I said on Player's Choice the other day, he reminds me of Antoine Walker a little bit. Antoine Walker-Zebo, just like a bigger body that I think can control the paint really well. Like, it's a pretty good passer. Then they got Jeremiah Fears. Like, they have nice pieces. I think Yves Mises is also a good player, but they're also super young. And, I just think they're just not – they don't really have an identity yet. There's nothing you look at for the Pelicans they're really good as this thing. And then the other end, obviously the Warriors, they had to get a win today. Then Moses Moody has a phenomenal game. Steph doesn't even have to do anything today. That's how well they played. So, yeah, the Pelicans, man, I think they're a year away from being a year away right now.
Yeah, it's not often that you're going to see the Warriors win a game 124-106 where Steph Curry is just not a factor, right? Like, he played 20 minutes, was 2 of 11, finished with, I believe it was 9 points. You don't see that from Steph very often. When you do see that from Steph, you don't see the Warriors win basketball games because nobody is built to really have their star play like that and win when they do have that sort of game. But we've got more to get to. We've got the Boston Celtics holding off the LA Clippers in what turned out to be a pretty good game in Boston. Plus, we will discuss whether or not the Chicago Bulls might be a little bit fraudulent straight ahead right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, but on every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money so you can trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from your money, so expect more from yourself and your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that is Robinhood.com, ROBINHOOD.com/your money, your money, your move. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. The NBA season is here. There are a lot of big games each and every week, and you want to be in the building for them, no matter what city you live in. Maybe you live in Cleveland like I do, and the Cavs are on a big homestand. You want to be inside Rocket Arena to check out Classic Edition night on Wednesday night. Well, Game Time, the place to go to get in the building. And the best part of Game Time is they take away the headache, because getting in the building oftentimes can be just that, a headache. You've got waiting in queues. No one wants to do that. Surprise fees, one of my least favorite things. The price jumping right before checkout, can't stand it. With Game Time, you don't have that because none of it exists. Game Time is the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and most importantly, stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Thank you for making today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen. Thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen every single day. The Boston Celtics got a close win over the LA Clippers. They had a big lead throughout most of this game. Clippers staged a crazy comeback. We've got a lot to dive into this one, but first, let's hear from John Corrales for more.
Celtics almost gave this one away. James Harden almost took it from the Celtics, but they ended up holding on for this win. Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard both put up 30. Pritchard was the story early in the game when he hit 8 of his first 10 three-pointers, trying to snap out of a season-long slump where he started the season shooting 28% from 3. Derek White was flirting with a triple-double. Jaylen Brown was awesome, really just taking over down the stretch. Jordan Walsh's defense early on against Harden was really good, but the Clippers made a valiant comeback. The Celtics fouled too much. The foul disparity is a continued problem for the Boston Celtics. And the missed layups. They missed layups in the third quarter. They had the lead up to 24, and it was a one-point game at one point here. So the Celtics hold on. Nothing perfect. There are a lot of things to like, a lot of things not to like, but the Celtics have now won 2 games in a row with 2 games coming up against Brooklyn. There is the possibility of a little bit of a winning streak here for the Celtics. Much more coming up on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
So Boston held a big lead throughout, as John mentioned, and the Clippers came storming back late, and they had a chance to tie this game in what was, so Jaylen Brown hit a 3-pointer to cut it to a 1-point game. Peyton Pritchard, it was a 4-point game. Clippers hit a 3-pointer, cut it to a 1-point game. Peyton Pritchard goes to the line, and he was outrageous in this game too. Hits a couple of free throws, pushes it back out to 3. Clippers don't have any timeouts, so they have to go the full length of the floor, 94 feet. They throw a full court inbound pass
Christian
pass.
Laettner style.
James Harden has, I think, as good of a look, Swipa, as you're going to get in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know what else it reminded me of? The Villanova championship when they won that. They threw it was full court, threw it to the 3-point line, then he threw it out to the men and he hit a 3. It was very similar to that. Now James Harden, I think he just deserves a little bit of his own like segment here. Like he has been so good to start this year. By the way, they had a 55. The Boston Celtics had a 55-79 lead at one point in time in the third quarter of this game. They were dominating the Clippers, and the Clippers stormed back, and they did this off the back of James Harden getting 37 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. Now, today wasn't a super efficient game for James Harden from the field, but he went to the line 15 times. He played phenomenal down the stretch. Bogey was big off the bench. Brook Lopez had some good minutes off the bench. They just keep digging these huge holes for themselves, and they just don't have the same kind of fight like early on in games that you really expected from this Clippers team. And if they didn't do that, then they maybe could have came away with a win. But it's just really unfortunate, obviously, if you're a Clippers fan. But Jaylen Brown continues to have a really good season. 13 rebounds, 33 points. Like, that's elite basketball from JB. So they're playing very well, man. I'm really surprised still by the way the Clippers look, but again, it's super early. I am not out on the Clippers. I still think they're going to be a playoff team, but right now they definitely look like they are desperately in need of somebody else besides James Harden to show true consistency.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to ask you, because with this loss, they fall to 4-9 on the season. And if they were in the Eastern Conference, I don't think 4-9 is the death sentence. It might be out West. But I am curious if you have adjusted your expectations at all, because I know that you were somebody that was high on what you expected from the Clippers this year going into this season. Has that changed with the start? And I know they're not healthy.
Yeah,
I know. But Bradley Beal's not coming back. Kawhi Leonard will at some point, but every time he's injured, it's just shrouded in mystery. Like, where are you at with this team?
Yeah, it's too early. 21 games, again, is my barometer for when I really start to, for me, you can tell like who the contenders are going to be, because typically, y'all, a lot of people will tell you like, well, you really got to wait till like February. Honestly, like once you get to about the first quarter of the year, you get an idea of who's who in the NBA. Now, to be fair, remember, Danny, through the first Celtics finals run, I think they started off 500. Then they went crazy after December. And then you had the Dallas Mavericks, where they made the P.J. Washington trade and the Daniel Gafford trade. They went nuts. But, like, those are still, like, extenuating circumstances. Like, typically, I want to see the Clippers be fully healthy on the floor, get Kawhi, get some synergy. If they go on if they go on a 5-game win streak, all of a sudden they're back at 500, and then now we're like, okay, can you just keep, like, delivering night in, night out consistently the rest of the year? So I still think they're going to be a really good team. I just think they're too talented and they're too well coached to not be good,
That's what I would expect too. You worry, I think, especially with a roster that is not exactly young. And I think that they're a team that is certainly built more geared towards the postseason, as most older teams are. Like they were never a team that I thought was going to really run up the regular season win total, just because it's easier for teams that are that age to not have it every single night. But now they're, I think, going to have to exhaust more in the regular season, because they're going to have to be playing catch up. And that's not an easy thing to do, because when you mentioned some of those teams, like the Mavs team that went to the finals when they made the trade, the Celtics team, the first one that went to the finals with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, those were younger teams. This is not a younger team. Like, you can kind of play catch up when you're a younger team. Look at the Warriors last year, where they had to play catch up, and they did a great job getting back into it and finding their way into the playoffs. But then what happened when they got there, right? Like, they didn't have the success that maybe that roster on paper would lead you to believe they could have. So I wonder if we're looking at that type of situation with the LA Clippers this year, because I do think they're too talented to miss the playoffs, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's possible. Hopefully it happens. Like I said, James Harden has never missed the playoffs, and it really should not be this year that it starts.
I mean, he is certainly playing like a guy that deserves to be on that stage. He's been very good so far for them.
Is he the best
year.
player on that team, even when Kawhi's healthy?
Not when Kawhi's healthy, no. I think Kawhi is the best player on that team. I think James is having a great start to the season, but right now I think Kawhi is the best player. But I also, I don't know that this is going to sound crazy to say about James Harden. I can count on James Harden in the regular season more than I can count on Kawhi Leonard. When the postseason arrives, I don't feel that way. But I can count on James Harden from October until April much more than I think I can count on Kawhi Leonard in that time. But for what this team's goals are, they need Kawhi Leonard to be the best player.
Sure.
So the other game I wanted to get to in this segment, we had the Atlanta Hawks head out to Phoenix and take down the Phoenix Suns.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Rowland. I'm the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and the Hawks erased a 22-point deficit in the final 10 minutes on the road in Phoenix for their 5th consecutive win in memorable fashion. This is a roller coaster of a game. The Hawks were up by 13 in the first half, gave the lead away, and again, down by 22 with 10 minutes to go. Then Zachary Rugiet got fouled and landed very hard in the middle of what became a 20-0 run for the Hawks, in which they credited some inspiration of Zach going down. He left the game and did not return with a hip contusion, but the Hawks were fantastic in the fourth quarter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had 16 points in the fourth, and this has been a resilient team in recent days. 9-5 now for the Hawks, and their best record, 4 games over 500, since they were 10-6 back in the 2022-2023 season. So it's been a while since the Hawks were on a run like this. They're playing very well and certainly doing it in a lot of different ways at this point in time. They come back for a big-time showdown against Detroit on Tuesday, but in the meantime, a celebratory flight home for Atlanta and a full breakdown coming on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
That is a great stat from Brad, that this is the first time they've been 4 games above 500 in years. And from a team that, like, it's not like they've stunk forever, right? Like they've not been a bad basketball team most of that time. But it's interesting to me that they've done this against some good teams, and not, Phoenix isn't like a title contender, but they've been good to start the season without Trae Young on the floor. That is just something I am noticing. I'm not saying it's sustainable, but I'm noticing it, Swipa.
How about this? You go to the Data Baller, look at all their lineups, so Huawei lineups. Right now, the starting lineup with Nickeil, Jalen, Dyson, Zachary, and Porzingis plus 4.2. The lineup with Luke Kennard in, where you put him in for Zachary Rugiet in this lineup. It's a plus. Then you have another lineup with Nickeil, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, Dyson, and Rugiet plus 30. Every lineup that you see in all of their lineups together, that they have Trae Young in them, are all losing their minutes, and by a lot. The defense is horrific. I am a Trae person. I like Trae. I think Trae is good, but I think there are reasons why the Hawks have not wanted to pay him. I think there's also a connected reason why they look better without him. I think being a very high usage player, Danny, if you're a high usage player and you're not super efficient and your shot quality is very poor, I do think that has a negative effect on your team. It's not like he's trying to, though. He's doing the best he can. And then defensively, he is obviously maybe the worst defender in the NBA because of his size. So you add all that together, and then you put hey, Dyson Daniels and Nickeil, which is maybe a top 3 defensive backcourt in the NBA together. It's just kind of it just makes more sense from maybe an NBA basketball standpoint, but I don't want it to sound like I'm against Trae. I just think there's legitimate basketball reasons why they're better without him.
I think there are legitimate basketball reasons, but I also look at this and say, I'm not sure offensively it's super sustainable the way that they are, because I just don't know that they have enough creation to do this for months after months after months. I think it's a sign of a good team when you can be without one of your best players and find a way to win without said very good player. But I look at what we thought of the Hawks as a home court advantage team in the first round, a team that could, depending on matchups, find its way to the conference finals or the NBA finals. They can't achieve all of that without Trae. They can achieve some of it, but I don't think they can reach their full potential without him, because I don't think they can be good enough offensively the way they're built without that creation.
In the Eastern Conference?
Yes, the creation matters a lot, man.
I don't know, man. I gotta see it. I just think, bro, like Jalen Johnson and Zachary Ricochet and Dyson and Nikhil, that's still good amount of creation. It's not Trae Young, obviously, but like if they run an offense that's really like, focusing on maximizing touches, like they could run in a super efficient offense where you're just spreading the ball around, very similar to the Boston Celtics. So I don't know, like can Jalen Johnson be like a diet Jason Tatum? Well, maybe we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious to find out.
I think the reason that works so well for Boston is because they used math and shot a ton of threes, and I don't think this Hawks team is suited to do that, and that's why I don't think it would necessarily work. But I want to ask a big question about the Chicago Bulls. You know what it is, because I've teased it the last 2 segments, so we're going to dive into it next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, or maybe you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel's the place to go because they've got live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for your shot at a bigger payout. At the end of the game, between Orlando and Houston that we talked about earlier, I wish I would have thought to look on FanDuel as I was watching that when Anthony Black was at the line to potentially put the Magic up by 3 points with less than 2 seconds to go. What could I have gotten Houston at right there? You can do that with FanDuel because they've got it all from fourth quarter comebacks. Who's going to score next? You can find there's something for everybody with FanDuel, and you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for your shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one that's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel giving new customers, this is a great deal. $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Yeah, all you got to do, win one $5 bet, $300 in bonus bets are yours if you're a new customer. So head to FanDuel.com, that is FanDuel.com, to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first watch. You can find us on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell while you're there. And the Chicago Bulls on the road tonight lost to the Utah Jazz, a very exciting game that I want to dive into, and I want to talk about the Chicago Bulls. But first, we're going to hear from David Locke with more from Locked On Jazz.
Keontae George with a shot from the right wing for 3 gives the Utah Jazz a double overtime 150-147 win over the Chicago Bulls. In a game with a ton of twists and turns, it was Keontae George who started the night 2 of 14 and having a miserable outing before Will Hardy stopped him as he was coming off the floor, put a hand on each hip, calmed him down, and the third-year guard exploded after that, going 8 of 13 for the field, finishing with 33 points. But none of it would have been possible if Lauri Markkanen wasn't lethal against his former team, the Chicago Bulls. 47 points for Lauri Markkanen as he torched the Chicago Bulls. And trust me, this one is personal. The Bulls gave up on Lauri Markkanen along the way, and Markkanen put 47 back-to-back 40-point games for Markkanen, the first Jazz player since Donovan Mitchell to do it in 2021, and before that it was Karl Malone. The Bulls got Kobe White and Josh Giddey back in their lineups. They had 27 and 26 respectively as their play late forced the game into the first and second overtimes, but it was Keontae George's shot from the right wing that was the kill shot of the night, and the Jazz win it 150-147.
That's all great stuff for the Jazz, and I'm sure Jazz fans will be happy for tonight, and then they will get back to looking at lottery odds for what's going to happen in the spring because that's what their season is about. But now we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls because do you remember when the Chicago Bulls were 6-1? Well, they've lost 5 straight games since then. They're 6-6. They've not looked great, and I just want to ask the question, did some of us get over our skis with thinking the Chicago Bulls could be a good team this year because of their fast start?
I don't know who actually thought they were like a good team or even a playoff team. You know, I always try to remind people, 22-23, I believe the Portland Trailblazers in the first 10 games were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And everybody was like, wow, look at this. Their defense was top 10. And I just said, just give it time. Just give it time because talent and process will always win out. The Bulls are, I think, good. They have like a nice squad, but if you just like put together, okay, then the Bulls plus what they have on the roster plus who they're playing against, it's eventually all going to even out, and that's just kind of what's happened. So I don't even have it's like an indictment on the Bulls per se. I think Ayo Dosunmu's been incredible this year. I think Josh Giddey's been largely very good this year. He had 26 points and 13 assists and 12 rebounds today again. Like, that's really good. He's an extremely productive player. Vooch had 21 and 13 today. That's a really productive player. Mata's maybe most improved player this year by the end of the year. He had 18 and 6 today. They're good. They're just not really good. And I think the league at this point is if you don't have like high-level talent that you can depend on every single night, it's really, really hard to win. And I think the Bulls are really good. I think that the Utah Jazz, honestly, are really good. But even the Jazz are going to struggle most nights just because they're just not going to be the most talented team they're playing against. So shout out to Lauri Markkanen. Last 3 games, he's averaging over 40 on stupid efficiency, man. So, look, the Bulls, they're good. Ayo's really good. Giddey's good. They need Kobe White back. But, yeah, making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference with this team is always going to be a long shot.
Yeah, I felt that way when they were 6-1, and I certainly still feel that way now. We've got a couple more games to get to, so now we're going to throw it over to Locked on Mavs, Nick Ingstad, with what happened between Dallas and Portland on Sunday.
Cooper flag. The Dallas Mavericks get their win against the Portland Trailblazers, their second overtime game in a row. And Cooper Flag just had 2 points and only took 3 shots in that first half. Finishes the game with 21 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal, including some clutch buckets in the fourth quarter and in overtime, where they played through him. They actually gave him the ball in an advantageous position. And the biggest difference between Cooper Flag's game at the beginning of this season and now 14 games into his rookie season in the NBA is he's more decisive with the ball. When he knows I've got Shaedon Sharpe on me, I can post him up or I can drive by him, he does that. When he's like, I got Denny Avdia on him, he's a pretty big wing, but I'm bigger and I can score over the top of him, he goes and he does just that. Cooper Flag made an absolutely huge impact. The Dallas Mavericks played their second best offensive game of the season. Lots of credit to go around. They had 7 players with double digits. That's only the second time they've done that this season. They had 33 assists, the most in a season this year. They were really passing the ball, flinging it around. With all their injuries, they have to have that. They have to have the ball movement. That's what their new offense is mandating. Gafford at 20 points. PJ Washington, 21 points. A lot of contributions overall, but the Dallas Mavericks get a win. Also 15 of 34 from 3, their best 3-point shooting game of the season as well. The Mavs offense finally coming around.
I think the biggest difference between the start of the season for Cooper Flag and now is that they're not Fire Nico Chance in the stands at home games anymore.
Cook up. That might be it. By the way, shout out to the Mavericks Arena. Fire the stadium music.
That was good. That. That was real good. That might have been better than Nick. Don't tell me I said that, but that might have been better than Nick. And now we head out to, we've got 2 more games left to get to. I have no comments on this. I don't know if you have comments on this. The 2 worst teams in basketball, the Washington Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets, played. We're going to throw it to Locked On Wizards, and I think then we're just going to pretend that the game didn't happen.
Washington Wizards lose their 11th game in a row, 129-104 to the Brooklyn Nets, as I am leaving Capital One Arena right now. Just frustrating, to say the least. 11th game in a row, like I just mentioned, against a Brooklyn Nets team without one of their top scorers in Cam Thomas. Ben Sheriff, Danny Wolf were not playing, and you still lose like that, giving up 129 points at home. Again, this is a common theme, and this losing streak continues to, sorry, I'm in the dark right now, to 15 or 20 games. At some point, I mean, this head coach is getting fired. I don't want Brian Keefe to get fired, but who do you point the finger to right now? Keyshawn George and Alex Sarr, very talented players. Keyshawn finished with 25. Alex Sarr finished with 9. Both were dealing with foul trouble in this game. Again, it just goes back to effort. This Brooklyn Nets team was a bottom 3 team in rebounding, and the Wizards were getting out-rebounded 21-10 late in this first half. It gets to a point, guys. It really does. And I love this team, but man, it's getting hard. And I've seen Wizards fans, it's hard for them to root for this team. But brighter days are ahead. You have to look at the bigger picture. Go Wiz.
He sounded broken, and it is November 17th. And that is very early to sound broken.
Look, man, one day soon, there will be a timeline where the Wizards will be the best team in basketball. It is always bound to happen at some point. It will happen soon, Wizards fans.
I'm not sure that I'm quite there with you, but the last game we got to get to, the San Antonio Spurs beat the Sacramento Kings 123-110. No Wemby in this one for the Spurs. Devin Vassell had an incredible dunk. He had 16 points. De'Aaron Fox had 28 points, was a plus 20 in 35 minutes against his old team. DeMar DeRozan had 27 points on 12 of 15 shooting for the Kings, so he was the standout on that side. Sacramento falls to 3-11, and they quickly have become one of the worst teams in the NBA as well.
Yeah, unfortunate year for Sacramento.
Yes, very, very much an unfortunate year for the Kings. Don't know where they're going, but it's not to a good place. But if you came here, you were in the right place, and you have to make this the right place every single day. You can find this show. That's it. Locked On NBA Game Night. Everywhere you get your podcast, that's Apple, that's Spotify, that's anywhere else. We are on YouTube as well. So as we get out of here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from Locked On NBA. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.